Council Study Session, December 8th, 2025, 6 p.m. at City Council Chambers, 111 East Maple. The first item on the agenda is the Mid-Continent Public Library's plan for property at this property site. And so, okay. So, Madam Interim City Manager, I might have you just tee this one up a little bit while they're coming into the room.
Happy to do so.
Thank you.
On September 2nd, the council approved city staff to enter into discussions with Mid-Continent Public Library to discuss the potential interest in the construction of a new administrative building here on the site of our existing city hall. This plan is in keeping with reshaping the square, which was formally adopted, the downtown redevelopment plan that was formally adopted by council in December of 2024. And this evening, Aaron Mason, the library director and CEO of the Mid-Continent Public Library, is here to give a high-level overview of the project plans to this point and answer any questions you may have. So with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mason.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see everyone here today. And just thank you to the council for giving us time to share a little bit about our idea for contributing to the development of Independence Square. And let's just see here. Just want to explain a little bit about how we got here. So the Mid-Continent Public Library back in 2024 conducted a facilities assessment plan that looked at our current building and made some recommendations on what it would take just to keep it running over the next 10 to 20 years. From there, it was decided that we really needed to re-envision our headquarters as a whole and think about whether it made sense to renovate the current building that we work in or relocate to another location. It was the decision of the Board of Trustees to explore a ground-up scenario within the region, and as luck would have it, we were presented with the potential possibility of relocating to Independence Square. And the question I guess a lot of people would ask is why Independence Square? And there's some really significant reasons. One, operationally, and two, I think, reasons that would benefit the culture of the organization as a whole. From a logistical perspective, we retain many of the efficiencies we have here in Independence, and that we're centrally located within the district. The building design that we're proposing leaves opportunity for the development of the parcel of land that we're currently on right now. But important to me and important to many of our staff, the fact that the building is embedded within the community, it's in a walkable environment, it has proximity to locally owned business, and most importantly, it's publicly accessible. As many of you are aware, our current headquarters is administrative only with no access to the public, and our proposal today will show you areas where the public would have access to our building. With me are two representatives from BNIM, James Pfeiffer and Josh Harold. But before we do that, I do want to touch on 2 points that have been a concern for our partners and stakeholders at the City of Independence. One has to do with the frequency of deliveries. So the organization itself delivers daily to all of our branches. We have 3 or 4 delivery routes that leave at 5 a.m. in the morning and return back to headquarters by noon. And these are with traditional box trucks. I would say maybe 1 or 2 times a week we do receive semi-truck deliveries through either FedEx or other book delivery services. In our proposal, you will see that we're proposing a dock that would obscure this delivery function from the public and would not include any blocking of traffic like you would see outside a traditional restaurant on the square. But the point I'm making here is that the frequency of deliveries is very light, and more than likely, very few of us would actually see it or notice it within a given day. And the last thing I do want to talk about is on this property is a sister city garden in partnership with a city in Japan whose name I cannot pronounce at the moment. But I do want to just show you that in our proposal, have I In our proposal, you will see here, this yellow portion is what we're calling right now the Independent Plaza. And I think there's a unique opportunity to partner with the city to relocate or reimagine the Sister City Garden in this Independence Plaza area. And we're having some tech issues here. All right, there we go. So what we are offering is roughly a 68,000 square foot building that includes publicly accessible space on the inside of the building in the form of a community room, and then this Independence Plaza area directly outside of the entrance of the building. And now I'd like to bring up James and Josh to give you a walkthrough and just talk a little bit about the history of how we designed this proposal and how it works with the current master plan of the City of Independence. So, here we go.
Thank you, Aaron, and good evening. It's an honor for us to be here with you to talk about this exciting effort. And so, as Aaron mentioned, I'm James Pfeiffer, and I'm an architect with BNIM. I'm here with my colleague, Josh Harold, also principal and architect at BNIM. So, we wanted to share that our team is very, very familiar with and really appreciates the really great work that and the process over many, many years that's taken place to imagine the possibilities for a redeveloped downtown Independence, which of course has been the commercial heart of this city now for almost 200 years. We know that work has been the result of multiple planning efforts and engagements over many years, and has benefited from the participation really of so many from this community. So this project will be conceived and developed in a way that really honors that vision and allows for flexibility in how future development ultimately unfolds as well. So in lieu of terminating Maple Street and creating a bit of a dead-end condition as it currently exists, the idea that we're proposing offers the ability to extend Maple and reconnect and heal the street grid in this location. This also serves to create multiple parcels for future development on either side of Maple Street, locating MCPL on the land just south of Maple, bounded by Lynn on the west, Memorial on the east, and Lexington on the south, and offering land north of Maple for other uses the city views as appropriate and beneficial moving forward. Okay. So we're really excited about the potential for MCPL to contribute to the revitalization of downtown Independence and fully recognize the responsibility that comes with really becoming a new neighbor. As the design evolves, our goal is to really integrate and knit this structure thoughtfully within the historic context. We intend to carefully study building materials that are compatible, that are durable, that are authentic to the district, and work with the established datums and rhythms of the surrounding fabric to really inform the character and the look and feel of the new development.
All right, so next I'm going to walk you through the proposed plan layout for MCPL's headquarters building. So what you're seeing here is a first floor at grade. As Aaron mentioned, Independence Plaza over on the northwest corner, which has great adjacency to the square and would be sort of where the public would enter the building. Directly adjacent to that on the south, you can see the community room, which is really a living room for both the public and the library. Behind that, or to the west on the southern edge, is community relations and then executive operations. And that is the full floor plate area of the first floor. You'll also see directly adjacent to Independence Plaza on the west side, a green roof that extends from the plaza there. You might have noticed on the previous plan, the dashed line. We recognize there's about 25 to almost 30 feet of grade change across the site. So that western half of the site is all slab on grade. whereas the eastern half is sort of, think of it much like a walkout basement, and that holds the remaining portions of Mid-Continent Public Library's office space, which includes areas for IT, collections, and Reading Rocket. And then, as Aaron mentioned as well, the receiving area over on the far east side, you can see spaces for 3 box trucks and 2 tractor trailer areas. There is a central work cafe that extends down through the building, which allows natural daylight to penetrate into the building for occupants. Just quick early studies for this. You can see this is a view kind of looking at Independence Plaza. So off to our right would be the square. So this is along Lynn. And you can see the through street of Maple and then the green roof. We're really trying for a significant amount of transparency here to open up towards the community. And then you can sort of see a clear story pop up, letting daylight down into the lower basement levels. This is a then view looking south and west. So the square is off to your right, kind of looking over what would be the green roof area, and you can see then the lower level or the more basement-like area sliding out of the grade with a series of skylights above that also let daylight down into the basement. And then lastly, a really early schematic look at Independence Plaza, looking in towards the community room and reception area, and then the public stair headed down. So with that, I think that's our presentation. Do you have anything else to add?
Thank you. I mean, we're happy to answer any questions you might have at this point, if you do.
Any questions? Please proceed.
Thank you. You're in the unique position of having 3 different counties under your jurisdiction, and we are delighted that you chose Independence. And so could you just speak to how the other counties feel about that? I know you have a board made up of a variety of folks. They're supportive of it remaining in Independence?
Yes. So we've had discussions and presented a variety of opportunities to our Board of Trustees. And to date, they've been very supportive of us engaging in good faith negotiations with the City of Independence. I think everyone understands that being centrally located, the efficiencies gained from being Independence is probably primarily the most important thing that we need to consider. We've looked at other sites. We've looked sites further east here, north of here, and really when you think about the added cost of delivery times and commutes, it makes the most sense to remain in the City of Independence.
Sometimes Independence has a little bit of an inferiority complex, so it's lovely to hear that people choose Independence because this is where they wish to be, because it is the best for them.
You're talking to a person from Cleveland, Ohio, so I do understand.
Okay.
Yes.
How many employees will be located in your building?
150. And these 150 people do come from all 3 counties, with the majority coming from Jackson County. But those 150 staff members are of the most highest trained or most skilled and highest paid within our system. Earlier I mentioned our site criteria, and walkability and being embedded within a community are 2 things that were of great priority for our staff, which is why we're really leaning into this opportunity.
And we can certainly see the quality and care that Mid-Continent Public Library has dedicated to its renovated branches and its new branch that it built in Independence. So you have proven yourselves to keep your word and do exceptional design and wonderful builds. So I am more than excited to support your project. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please proceed.
Mayor. Thank you for your presentation and for choosing Independence and for the opportunity that we have to discuss this. And I'm just curious at this point. I know it's early in the process, but given where you are today, what would be your most optimistic timelines?
Well, I don't have a committed memory, but I would love to break ground at, where's Sarah? Who were we saying, was it the end of 26 where we would break ground? So a lot of things we need to do. We would need to do due diligence. Obviously, we would need to come to agreement with the City of Independence, get our financing in place, and ideally, by the end of '26, we'd be looking to break ground.
Thank you. That was my primary question.
Anyone else have further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
can you go back to slide 6?
Slide 6.
This, and sort of talk about, this looks like kind of your mood board for material. Can you talk about that, materials and what you're thinking about for the outside of the building?
Well, I'll just give a little 2 cents here before. I mean, the last thing you want to do is build like a Dubai-looking building in the middle of Independence Square. And so we tasked BNIM with thinking about what materials could really work seamlessly with the design aesthetic of the square as it exists today.
I can share a little bit more, but James mentioned some a little bit earlier, but we use the term paradigmatic relationships, and I kind of hate to use a big weird word like that in front of you all, but what it's looking at is the context. You're looking at the window patterns, the horizontal datums, you're looking at the materials, whether they're brick or limestone, and you're really trying to make those material and datum relationships with this new project so it fits really seamlessly into its context. I would echo exactly what Aaron's saying. We're not interested in dropping something that is extremely foreign here, but texturally, materially, tonally, to be contextual is what we're after. To be polite to the historical context.
Thank you.
Anyone else have further questions? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My thoughts have evolved quite a bit. So, Mr. Mason, thank you for your patience with me. I know the first time that we met, I took a pretty strong protective posture, I guess, for the square. So,
Understood. Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. One of the selling points as conversations evolved was more of the community buy-in, but also you guys have been a great community partner. And the fact that I have no stock in BNIM, but they are a great architectural firm, and I was super pleased to hear that those are who you engaged to help you with this. I had the good pleasure working with Steve McDowell and Josh Scranton and Greg Scranton and Josh. I think you guys were there too in Inglewood, and if there's some faces I'm not remembering, sorry, but that was a great experience. You guys did really good work over there. It didn't pan out, obviously, but your professionalism and the ability to think out of the box and present a good product. So put all that together has really helped my thoughts move forward with this. So I'm very excited to see this. This is an opportunity, if the board selects this site, and we strongly hope you do. We appreciate you taking the look that you have with Independence to really set the tone and the pace for development on the square. This is a unique opportunity that doesn't come around very often, and I'm very excited that we are a part of this conversation with one another. So I guess my question for you, for city manager, is what is our next step as a city? What do we need to do to maybe help facilitate this conversation further?
Sure. So our next steps would be to just continue negotiations with the library,
Okay.
come to terms, and then present those terms to the council. There will be an agenda item on the agenda for the 15th to discuss a letter of intent to move forward and finalize this from just being willing to talk about it to take that next step into an official letter of intent. So you'll see that on our next week's meeting.
Okay, great. And then, Mr. Mayor, I know you and I have spoken just a little bit. And Mr. Mason, thank you for mentioning the Japanese Sister City Garden, which is highly important to us. And I believe we were going to work a little bit more after the council meeting to get some calendar dates set to discuss further. So thank you for
All
bringing
right.
that up.
Yep. All right, well, thank
very
you
much.
all.
That works. Thank you very much.
Yep.
No, thank you. Exciting plans. Love to see this location revitalized and used to its ultimate, and that would be a great use for this property. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Next up on the agenda is the Eastgate Development and Interim City Manager. Anything you'd like to bring us update on this one?
Sure. While our Assistant City Manager, Charlie DeSalle, is making his way forward, as we've discussed at our last several meetings, the need for power generation and approved the Chapter 100 and Independence Power Partners project to go in at the site of the old Blue Valley power plant. Mr. DeSalle is here to discuss some new opportunities and upcoming potential project at the Eastgate development.
Yes, thank you. Charlie DeSalle, Assistant City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think the Council's aware of most of this stuff that we're about to present. I think the purpose of this presentation was to present a lot of it to the public, things that we have been working on for the last 6 months to a year that are kindly coming to fruition, and try to tie it together with some of the recent decisions that the Council has made. So a few things that we are going to go over this evening, just the proposed Nebius Data Center campus, the recent decision by the Council to partner with the Independence Power Partners, some power purchase and energy services agreement that we've been working on, and then what next steps we can expect. I think the Council has seen the article that I have up on the screen here. I'm not sure everybody in the public has seen, but today the Kansas City Business Journal did release an article announcing that Nebius is planning on, well, Nebius has, I should say, closed on a piece of ground in Independence and does plan to proceed with a data center in our community. So just to give some background on what we know right now, there's still a lot of work to be done. I want to preface all of this by saying that. But what we know so far and what is left, Nebius does intend to develop a state-of-the-art data center campus comprising up to 10 buildings. The total planned footprint is approximately 2.5 million square feet. Development is going to occur in stages over a 3 to 5 year period, and they do anticipate construction beginning in early 2026. The campus will be equipped to support at least 800 megawatts of data center operations, and there will be key infrastructure components including data servers, robust mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and then a robust HVAC operations. What we know about Nebius, they are a global NASDAQ-listed company developing next-generation cloud for the age of AI. They have leading clients, including Microsoft, Meta, Shopify, and others. And in addition to its AI infrastructure business, they do operate a platform called Triple10, which is a coding bootcamp initiative which has been deployed in Independence. About Nebius, their AI factory locations across Europe, Israel, and the US, they focus on efficient, intelligent, and resilient digital infrastructure, including sustainable operations with closed-loop water systems and energy-efficient cooling strategies to minimize environmental impact. They are committed to being a long-term community partner, and I do want to emphasize this in all of the conversations that we've had with them. They are really focused on being a good community partner, aligning its investment with local priorities. In Independence, the company is focused on transparency, collaboration, and trust building with a goal of being a good neighbor. And as I mentioned, as we started this presentation, they did close on just under 400 acres of ground this past Friday, generally located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Little Blue Parkway and Missouri 78 Highway. To give you a little bit of a graphic of where that is, you can see on the screen here outlined in the red is where they propose their location to be. This is the piece of ground that they closed on, but it is generally bounded by Little Blue Parkway, Missouri 78 Highway, and the Little Blue River. I won't read all of this, but they do have core principles of community engagement, and I think the one thing I'd like to emphasize here, and the council is aware of this, is that a community engagement panel will be launched as the project nears final approval. This community engagement panel will be made up of a certain number, I don't think they've landed on that yet, but of community members, and they've kind of hinted that it could be somewhere in the dozen to 20 member range, but they will provide updates on progress to that community panel. They will identify areas of community need, and they will facilitate two-way communication with residents and leaders. They have education areas of focus that they'll be working on, a lot of K-12 initiatives, including STEM enrichment, hands-on learning, and teaching development. They will focus on trade and workforce development to support apprenticeship programs in the digital infrastructure. And they are starting to begin talks with Metropolitan Community College on some partnerships that they can have with that college. They will be focused on safety, volunteerism, and conservation. I know one of the questions that we asked from the start, and I know one of the concerns that council had as we were starting these discussions, was what the water usage of such a facility would be. Nebius has indicated that they will use a closed-looped cooling system. What that does is it utilizes a sealed piping system where a fixed volume of fluid circulates continuously. It does minimize water consumption by avoiding evaporation losses common in traditional open-loop systems, and it supports Nebius's commitment to sustainable infrastructure and reduces environmental impact. Just some background for the City of Independence. Currently, our average daily water production at our facility is 28 million gallons per day. Keep in mind this is average, so in the summer that number could be a little bit higher. In the winter it's most likely a little bit lower, but we do have the capacity to go up to 48 million gallons per day. So knowing that this is going to be using a closed loop system, this project's water use is expected to be well within the city's existing capacity. And then looking at what we expect from a capital expenditure on this, they will be, the expenditure will be about $6.6 billion for land acquisition and site improvements. So that's the vertical construction that'll take place when we say site improvements. And then tens of billions of dollars in initial equipment investment. And that equipment that they put in within the data center, they are projecting that about every 5 years they will need to refresh that equipment, so that tens of billions of dollars on the initial investment will recirculate every 5 years. So when we look at that, obviously the tens of billions of dollars of investment is big for personal property tax, the $6.6 billion, especially on the site improvements. That's going to be for the real property, but the impacted taxing jurisdictions, and we talked about this a little bit earlier this evening, but the impacted taxing jurisdictions are going to see revenues coming in from this project, and those jurisdictions include both the Independence and Fort Osage School District, Mid-Continent Public Library, Jackson County, the Metropolitan Community College, and the City of Independence. So moving on, some of the decisions that the council has made. As you're aware, we have been working with the Independence Power Partners on power generation within the Eastgate development and just adding that capacity to the City of Independence. But the Power Partners will lease approximately 91 acres at the city's retired Blue Valley Power Plant site. And that project will be developed in 2 phases. First phase being about 225 megawatts and utilizing 15 turbines, and phase 2 expanding up to approximately 800 megawatts. As the council's aware, Chapter 100 plan was approved by the City Council on December 1st. That was your last council meeting, and that was approved for a 100% tax abatement. So just really quick going over why 100% tax abatement on that. Really, it was to incentivize the production of the power. As we mentioned in a presentation that we gave a couple weeks ago, there have been a lot of opportunities that the city has missed out on because we did not have the available power for these people to come. And we wanted to make sure that we were taking care of that problem, because the more power we can provide, the bigger investments we can get to come in here, that's going to help offset that 100% tax abatement. And really any of the taxes that we would have had, so if there was a 90% tax abatement with a 10% pilot that was coming in, those costs were going to be passed through for us when we purchased the power. So I think that's an important thing to note is, again, this was really done to see if we could get a user to come in here and help with some development in Eastgate. So how do we tie all of that together, and how do we make sure that we are signing the proper agreements that come with the purchasing of power and the selling of power? So to just give a little bit of background on this, first of all, there's 2 separate agreements that we had been working through. First is a power purchase agreement, commonly referred to as a PPA. That is a long-term contract between IPL and the Independence Power Partners to purchase electricity capacity and energy at a predetermined price over a fixed term. And then we also have what's called an energy service agreement, commonly referred to as an ESA, and that is a long-term agreement between IPL and Nebius to deliver energy at a set pricing structure for a defined period. Council actions, as we done, this was presented in executive session to the council on November 17th, and authorization was granted for execution of the PPA and ESA by the council on November 24th. That authorization was granted once Nebius closed on the piece of ground, which again happened on Friday. So this past Friday, both separate PPAs for Phase 1 and Phase 2 were executed with IPP, the Independence Power Partners, and an ESA between the city and Nebius was executed. So why were those done in executive session? I want to go over the legal basis for that really quick. So when we look at Missouri statutes, section 610.021, it states that a public governmental body is authorized to close meetings, records, and votes when they pertain to, and in this particular case, it says sealed bids and related documents until the bids are open, and sealed proposals and related documents, or any documents related to a negotiated contract until a contract is executed or all proposals are rejected. So in this particular case, the city was simultaneously negotiating the purchase power for capacity from one entity, which was the Independence Power Partners, and the sale of power to another entity, which was Nebius. Public disclosure during negotiations could have compromised the city's position and resulted in higher costs to the city. Therefore, those discussions were appropriately held in executive session to protect the integrity and financial interests of the city. I'm going to hand it off to Joe Hagendeffer, the IPL director, really quick to go over some of the nuances of these agreements, the particulars, and some of the things that were done to protect the city. I'll hand it off to him, and then I'll come back up here and answer any questions if there are any at that point.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Joe Hagendeffer, Independence Power and Light Director. So this is a great infographic. I have no idea where the inspiration of that came from, but so this is a really good drawing and emphasizes kind of what our Assistant City Manager just talked about, an ESA and a PPA. So that ESA sits between IPL and the data center, and then the PPA sits between IPL and IPP, or the Independence Power Partners. So the way this deal was constructed was so that we can reduce as much risk to the city at all points of time. And really, this one covers kind of the cost allocation and how those costs are passed through. So if you start on the ESA side in the very top and you look at capacity, so a capacity pricing, the difference between capacity and energy is, I think if everybody wants to picture, we'll say Cable Dahmer for the Mavericks games, right? So they build a parking lot to be able to fill every car that comes to a hockey game. And that's capacity, is how much could that parking lot hold? And then the energy would really be, well, how much of that parking lot is being used each day, with the maximum being during the hockey games and other events that happen at that center. So really, if you think about capacity, it's your capability to produce that energy. And then the energy is really what are you using at that time. So we have to pay for the capacity to be able to make all the energy that this data center is going to use. So if you saw the numbers earlier, you probably matched up that they're going to build 800 megawatt data center, and we're going to be able to produce 800 megawatts of electricity through this agreement. So the capacity charge that IPP is going to charge us in order to build that plant and meet those requisitions is a capacity charge, and that's a flat fee. And that is straight passed through 100% right to the data center. So we're not marking that up, we're not making any money, but we're not losing any money. That's a straight pass through and handoff over to our energy partners. So then as the data center runs and uses electricity, every single day we get our electricity actually from the Southwest Power Pool, and that's where the energy comes from. So they charge us at intervals to utilize energy throughout the day, and as that data center uses that energy, we will charge them straight through that charge for the energy. So what we're paying SPP will be billed right back to the data center. And then there's a lot of other costs that IPL will incur to have that customer. One of those is you see the little line going from IPL down to Southwest Power Pool, which is what SPP is ATRR. So those are annual transmission costs. So in order to get the energy into this area, when the power plant's not running, we have to pay transmission fees. We also have upkeep of lines and a lot of other equipment and materials that IPL handles. So we're going to charge them a demand charge on top of the other capacity and energy charge to help cover those costs. And we have looked out into the future, made sure that we're covered not only for costs today, but any anticipated costs into the future. So we're very confident that the ESA is going to cover all of our costs that's going to be incurred with building the power plant and then serving them as a customer. What's probably not listed under demand would be the pilot fee, because that's above and beyond. So the pilot charge, which is, our equivalent to a sales tax, so pilot and payment in lieu of taxes, will be charged to the data center as well and passed through from IPL to the city. At the very bottom, so all the costs that I'll go through here in a minute really take into account these base fees and these base charges. Because the energy market is changing so quickly, I can't tell you in 10, 15, 20 years how much these plants are going to run and how much market revenue they're going to make from the Southwest Power Pool for selling that energy into the pool. So that energy charge coming from Southwest Power Pool to the Independence Power Partners is above and beyond all our base charges. And we do have in the purchase power agreement a sharing of those market revenues going out into the future. Of course, out of those energy charges and running for that and the capacity charges, Independence Power Producers will pay for all the fuel that these turbines are going to expend, any O&M expenses, and of course the purchase, construction, building, owning, and operating of the power plants. So before I move away from this very busy slide with arrows running everywhere, I will stop for questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. So this will melt your brain if you spend a few minutes looking at that with all of the acronyms. Just for context for people who are watching and trying to understand, SPP is Southwest Power Pool. We have participated in for a long time, and it's sort of a cooperative of all of the energy producers and energy users in a big, huge swath across the middle of the United States. We pour our energy in. Everybody who is part of it takes energy out as they need it. Is that a fair statement right there?
Yes, so Southwest Power Pool, my best analogy for them is they're the air traffic controllers of our transmission system. They don't own any assets, they don't own any planes, they don't own an airport, they don't own any transmission or generation assets, but they literally direct the flow of electricity to make sure that the grid stays reliable at all times. And the other thing they do is to ensure that all the members of Southwest Power Pool get the benefits of the most cost-effective way to run that grid. So they line up every single day all the generators that say they can run the next day, and they run it from the cheapest to the most expensive, with the cheapest being the first to be called on to provide for load within the Southwest Power Pool.
So we get the advantage of them figuring out who's the cheapest. And so as utilization goes up, you tend to call on more and more expensive if you have to use lots and lots of energy at that time. So energy is more expensive for us during huge winter storms, when everybody has their furnace going, when that big Texas outage, we had lots of issues, but SPP works to make sure that everybody has the energy and everybody participates in putting the energy in. So
That is
that's why
correct.
we have to have capacity. We have to carry our fair share of the load just in case we needed to turn on our combustion turbines.
That is true. So the thing that I have said throughout this whole process is I'm not building a power plant to power a data center. I'm building a power plant to meet capacity needs for SPP so that we can get the energy necessary to run the data center.
So
I
I
know
think
it's kind of a roundabout way and
Well, that's
seems a
an-
little confusing, but
an important distinction that these combustion turbines won't run all the time. You will buy
Absolutely
solar,
true.
you will buy wind, whatever's available and whatever's cheapest, but we have to be able to turn these on when you need those. So these would be units that meet demand when those other types of energies are not available.
yes, that is
Okay.
true. But On top of that, these are new, highly efficient, highly effective, low emission units compared to our old combustion turbines within the city. And so saying that, I would fully expect all of these units to be running before any of our other older combustion turbines would be called on by the Southwest Power Pool, if that makes sense. And they should have a higher utilization and be called on by the market significantly more often.
So the old combustion turbines that we have, the word old should be used in big capital letters there. They lose a lot in heat. They take a long time to turn on and turn off, and these are quick, rapidly dispatchable. We can turn them on and turn them off quickly, so we don't
Very
lose a lot of
fast.
energy ramping up and shutting down. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. And they are also convertible to hydrogen should that technology become available.
They are already available to burn hydrogen if we decide to go that direction,
Okay.
yes.
And so hopefully the market will catch up with some of that increasingly environmentally beneficial opportunity.
Yes.
So I just want people to know that we aren't burning fossil fuels when we don't have to. We have options for renewables that we would use before we would turn on combustion turbines.
That is
Fair.
true.
Okay. The other part that I think is a little overwhelming is understanding that a corporate entity is helping to build these. We buy the energy and then send it through to the partner who is the large load user.
Yes.
This kind of sits next to our residential. So we have a whole set of energy that we use to power our regular obligations to our community. Those don't change. Nebraska City, Iatan, Dogwood, Smoky Hills, all of those same energies that we use and the rates that we charge our ratepayers for our residential side, those things are complementary but essentially independent. Is that fair?
The rates are devised off of how much energy I have to buy and the infrastructure that I have to maintain to deliver that to every single customer, be it the large data center or a small home. But
So
those rates are not impacted, by, that's the whole point of this setup is to not impact those rates in any negative and actually should be a positive because we have been told by so many studies we need more industrial load. So we're going from 285 megawatts of 90% by number of customers, about 50% by load is residential. So out of, we'll just say 300 megawatts, 150 is residential. Well, that 150 is going to stay the same, and now we're jumping clear up to 800 plus that other 150, so 950 megawatts of commercial industrial. So it's a significant, we've just completely flipped the script on its head and going to be able to accomplish all the things the studies told us we needed to do in order to keep residential rates in check for a long time.
So I'm going to rephrase that.
Good.
We've heard from every single rate study that we have a mix that's really hard on residential ratepayers because we have regular people in their houses paying most of the cost compared to other communities where they have lots of business and industrial who shoulder some of that burden and relieve it on the residential ratepayers. And we have been begged by our community, our business community, for years. It is the topic of every chamber conversation that we have, which is how much more we need residential or energy for industrial and business. So by adding industrial, we relieve some of the pressure
Yes.
on rate increases for our residential ratepayers because these guys can help cover some of that infrastructure improvement that we so desperately need, both in security, prevention of invasion of your IT system, as well as transmission and distribution. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I have more questions, but I feel like I've monopolized, so thank you.
Well, and I do have some other slides that's going to explain some of the other protections we have and some of the other numbers. So maybe we go through those, and if there's still questions, I can come back to any slide by any means.
Anyone else have further? Please proceed. Thank you.
So I think we just kind of talked about this. You know, will this raise everybody's electric rates? And the answer is no. So this project is structured different. And let me take the liberty of just taking a second to kind of explain that because I've already seen lots of communications that, oh, there goes my rates. They're going to go through the roof. So if you were a data center 5 to 10 years ago and you came to a town like Independence, you would say, hey, I want an electric rate at X cents per kilowatt hour. And you would demand that rate, and the city would say, well, I can either meet that or I can't. And what has happened is the 5 to 10 years ago deals that were occurred, they signed a 20-year agreement at an agreed upon kilowatt hour rate, so many cents. Well, now costs have continued to go up, and we've talked about this at this dais for a long time, that the cost of everything's going up, equipment, materials, labor, right? Inflation has gone up, and they're locked in at a certain price and they can't adjust. So this deal allows me to charge the data center the fees of whatever that energy cost is, not a given X cents per kilowatt hour for the next 20 years. It adjusts with inflation. It adjusts. Let's not do that. I don't think we want to restart the computer right now. Okay. Dodged for a minute. So those agreed upon prices are now impacting those cities and those municipalities that agreed upon a nice low price. And they agreed to that low price back when capacity was readily available. And if you're a city and you've got 200 megawatts of capacity just sitting there not earning you any money, well, sure, a nice low price, any price, right? Go ahead and just sell that. Well, now it's adversely affecting those cities because the price of energy and the price of everything else has gone up. This deal adjusts with that inflation. So, again, what the Independence Power Partners is charging me is a straight pass-through, so that cost is not going to impact us any. And then the price of energy for the SPP marketplace, as it fluctuates through the year, because even on shoulder months when it's nice and cool out and everybody has their windows open and not running ACs, the price of power is pretty cheap. In the middle of the night, it's pretty cheap. In the middle of the day, on a really hot July or August day, it's pretty expensive. Well, that price is not going to be bared by Independence Power and Light and our residents. That price is going to be paid by the data center as it fluctuates on a daily and hourly basis. So I hope that makes sense. So that's more of the pass-through pricing model, ensure that it's covered. Demand-based pricing, so that's to cover our future cost increases and to cover the transmission. Probably starting to repeat myself a little bit here. No city or IPL debt. So that's the great thing about Independence Power Partners coming in and us getting some private leverage to construct and build a power plant in our city to help us bring and attract a load and a nice data center as we have, without us incurring the debt and it being on our shoulders. Then future ownership opportunity, we're working with the Independence Power Producers, and there's a lot of language in both the purchase power agreement and the land lease agreement for purchase options, so that down the road, if they're done, they don't want to operate that plant anymore, that we have the option to purchase those assets off of them, and then they become ours for long-term meeting the energy needs of the residents.
And if I may interrupt you there, so
Yes.
there's no city debt, there's no IPL debt for this because it's being developed by an outside entity.
That is correct.
Okay. Who are the companies that are producing this, and have we looked at their financials to make sure they've got the wherewithal to produce this? Can they bond this amount of money? Because to build this, we're talking, I've heard numbers, $2 billion. So that's, you've got to have a lot of bonding capacity to do that. So, for public consumption, I've had, constituents ask me, clearly who are the names of the companies, how can they research them, how can they find out, so they feel comfortable with this process too.
So Independence Power Partners is a joint venture group between United Energy Trading, LLC, and Exigent Energy. Both of those companies have been in the power industry for a really long time. UET is a little more gas infrastructure driven, and Exigent is more power plant construction and delivery driven. Exigent partners with a company called Primoris, which you'll hear more about later. So that's the company that will actually construct and build this power plant. They are currently on site at the Stargate Data Center, constructing a power plant down there. They're probably one of the biggest construction firms that you've never heard of. They've done hundreds of these data center projects, and I think Exigent has done over 6,000 megawatts of power plant construction projects. So they've been in this business for 25 plus years, and definitely vetted, and UET's been around a long time as well. All American companies that are delivering on data center projects across the nation as we speak.
And if I'm correct, UET is a publicly traded company, if I'm correct.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Does that sound right, Charlie?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's just really important that the city's not incurring any debt on this in this process.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on if that's okay.
Please,
so,
thank you.
On top of what I've just spoke about, there's other risk mitigating measures that we ensured were put into the contract language. One of those is phase one is the 200 megawatts. All of us, including IPP, IPL, Data Center, Southwest Power Pool, have had many conversations with, all feel comfortable with the 200 megawatt plant, that it's not going to incur any major or significant transmission upgrades in order to allow that load to come into the city, nor the generation. When we get to the next phase and we're going up to 800 megawatts, there is going to be some transmission upgrades. I think everybody needs to just understand that. In the purchase power agreement and in the energy service agreement, we have a top gap or a stop gap, if you will, a level of payment for those transmission upgrades. And those have been studied, and the Independence Power Partners feels pretty comfortable that the cost will come in under that. But if it does come in over that, we all three come back to the table and figure out if and how we're going to finance the difference moving forward. So I just want you guys to know, if it's under that, then it's all good. It's actually part of the financing package that IPP is putting together. But if it's over that, we do all kind of stop and come back together, and we have several months to kind of come to a conclusion of whether somebody wants to take on that risk and pay the difference. Force majeure, a fancy French word there. Both PPAs and ESAs include provisions to help us from unforeseeable events. Those would be tornadoes and the like, fires, or any other natural disasters that could happen. Because if the power plant has a force majeure event and I can't supply to Southwest Power Pool, I need to be protected that we're not on the hook for that. And the same thing with the data center. If they had a major event and couldn't take the power anymore, we needed to be protected from that way as well. Market revenue disclaimer, I think I talked about that real quick, that those are kind of, I don't want to just say icing on the cake, but it's above and beyond our base rates, because I can't count on those in future revenues. Absolutely nobody, if anybody tells you they know what the market revenues are going to be 10 years from now, I hope they have a lottery ticket, or they're probably going to be really rich and famous, because nobody can predict it that far out. Some other measures, performance guarantees. It sounds kind of silly when you start talking billion-dollar, AI companies, but what if they went bankrupt? We don't, this is a 20-year contract. What if they went bankrupt or had some other, business issues? We have some performance guarantees in there that covers the city in the case of that, so that we could continue to make our payments to the Independence Power Partners and pay the power plant off. Prepaid billing structure. So this kind of became a cash flow issue. When we start talking about the revenues and the levels that you'll see on the next slide, tens of millions of dollars a month in just, revenues flowing through IPL to Southwest Power Pool and whatnot, we needed to make sure they could prepay us and pay up front, so that we're not trying to come up with that cash and pay those bills before we can bill them. So we're actually going to bill them at the beginning of the month, they'll pay us, and then at the end of the month we'll do a true up. Grid event liability, we can't be held liable if Southwest Power Pool calls for some kind of shedding event or some kind of major grid stability. That's out of our control, so I can't be held liable for that. And then accountability for delays, there's a lot of language in there on both sides that if one of the projects is running delayed, that we're still protected financially. Payment in lieu of taxes. So here's some potentials to the city, and I'll say potentials. Phase 1 has the potential to bring $10 to $15 million annually to the city through the pilots. Phase 2, 25 to 40. So you can see this is a major project that has the potential within 5 years to be bringing $35 to $55 million annually to the city's general fund. IPL net annual revenues look about the same. 10 to 15, 25 to 40. So it's kind of split, and those aren't they're the same numbers, but they're not the same. So 35 to 50 to the city's general fund and 35 to 50 to IPL's net operating fund so it can do some major capital projects. Let's see here. I think I'm done. I think I may hand this back to Charlie. With that, I'm going to move away. Was there any other questions? I'm sorry.
Any other questions from anyone?
I've got one slide left if we want to just get through this last slide and then.
I know Councilmember
Is that
McCandless had
okay?
a question.
Sorry.
My questions are for Joe, so
Let's just let me go through this last one right here. We'll do that, and then I think Joe and I will just be available for questions if that works. Sorry. Okay,
Mayor,
so next
hang on,
steps.
Charlie?
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't have any questions, but do have some comments after
Okay.
Charlie's.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sounds good.
So just quickly, I'm going to go over next steps. There's a lot of things that are yet to come. This thing just obviously Nebius just closed on this piece of ground on Friday. There's still a lot of steps left. There'll be council actions. Nebius has submitted a Chapter 100 tax abatement plan to the city. We are currently reviewing that internally. We expect that to be in front of the council here after the beginning of the year. Bly Road relocation, obviously, as part of a preliminary plat that has been approved by council, we know that Bly Road will be relocated. Part of the process to approve that will be a formal right-of-way vacation that will have to come through the council. I tried to go over high level on what we know about Nebius, but Nebius is going to be within the community, and they will be holding hearing or public meetings with the community to introduce themselves. So I tried to go as high level as I could, but they will really be here to represent themselves here in the future. They plan on holding public meetings, and we are discussing how those meetings will look, but we're hoping that it can be some combination of a meeting that is hosted by both Nebius and the PUAB. And as I mentioned here earlier, formation of a community engagement panel, which will be led by Nebius. And then there will be administrative approvals that are still yet to come. That's a minor subdivision approval, the Bly Road relocation, that is the actual dedication of the new right-of-way that'll be coming, site plan and engineering review, and then building permit issuance before they start construction. So with that, I know we've gone over a lot. Joe and I are here to answer any questions that you may have, but appreciate your moment for indulgence.
Councilmember McCandless, the floor is yours.
thank you. Mr. Heggendeffer, you
Yes.
went through much of the belt and suspenders of how many different ways we are protected as a city. And I appreciate that you sort of anticipated every disaster that could come our way and tried to address that in your contract.
Yes.
What if Nebius changes her mind and doesn't come, forfeits the land, decides you guys are already off to the races in building your power side, and Nebius says, no, thank you?
So that's probably back with the Nebius filing bankruptcy or not continuing forward with their project. There are protections for us, and we would have to decide as a city, do we want to move forward with any phases of the project ourselves to go ahead and try to attract a replacement partner.
So even if we built it, we would be able to sell that capacity and sell that energy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That capacity and energy is ours through the purchase power agreement.
Okay. What if tomorrow NVIDIA develops a chip that uses 1/1000th of the energy that Nebius is anticipating and all of a sudden their energy needs drop and they don't have to use as much?
So that's an interesting question, and actually there was an NVIDIA executive at a Southwest Power Pool meeting that I went to about the middle of last year, and that question was raised of, okay, I got a 500 megawatt data center, now they're going to develop a chip that uses half the energy, is it now a 250 megawatt data center? And the NVIDIA guy said absolutely not. He said a data center is going to consume the amount of power that it's going to consume. And if chips become more efficient, it becomes a more powerful computing data center for the same energy. So it would not become a half energy. It would just be able to compute twice as much if they were twice as efficient. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And so you just wouldn't build as many data centers, but we would already have ours, so it would be used at capacity.
Yeah, ours is
Okay.
going to be, and they're paying for 800 megawatts by the time phase 2 comes along. So it would not make sense for them to use less energy. It would make sense for them to use every bit of that energy and get more computing power out of it.
And just my last question, transformers have been the bane of your existence. We have talked about how much we are waiting for them, how projects have been stalled by the lack of availability. Does this concern you?
It's always going to concern me. It's lightened up a little bit and gotten better, but there's also a lot of projects in the queue right now. So if you don't have one on order, well, it decided it's going to restart now. If you decided you wanted to go buy one today, you could talk to manufacturers, and there's a lot of projects that were speculative that are now dropping out of the queue, and you can buy positions in queues for turbines, transformers, and electrical equipment. Yes, it's something we're going to keep an eye on constantly and make sure we hit the deadlines that we have for both projects.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Perkins?
Does anyone else want to go?
Well, I've got a couple of questions, but I don't know if you want me to do questions first.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. The biggest question, I've got a variety of questions, and the biggest question for me is the water usage. And obviously, they're going to use a closed system, but they have not designed or stated exactly what closed system it is. I know that we can supply another 12 million gallons, roughly, is what I heard earlier in the presentation. And you've grabbed the microphone, so you obviously want to answer that. So
I don't want to answer it.
Again, as Assistant City Manager DeSalle mentioned, the numbers that were part of the presentation are simply averages of what we pump throughout the year. So no, the actual max capacity that we've given any developer, especially in this area, is we have 3 million gallons a day of availability at the most. So the numbers we're seeing look to fall well within that range. Again, nothing definite has come through, but we're looking at numbers that would still provide available capacity even for something else to go in the same area based on preliminary findings.
okay.
But we certainly don't have 12.
Right. And so my question is this. Should we as a city demand a site-specific, independently verified water use model before approving this project?
Sorry, I'll turn the mic back on. I think there's still a lot of determination to be made on this. I can tell you from staff standpoint, as we sit today, we are very confident that we are going to be well within our available capacity to a point where it should not be a concern. However, Nebius still has a lot of work to do. I can tell you in going through this process, we have been so focused in on getting the power to this site that there hasn't been a lot of discussion taking place in all the other items. They've been working on it. We know they're going to work on it. There are still approvals and things that we need to review from staff standpoint to get to this. But I think I can assure you from staff standpoint, we are going to work with them to make sure that that is not an issue. We will work with municipal services and our water division within there to make sure that's not an issue. And if we see it being an issue, I think then maybe it would be appropriate to start looking at some sort of agreement or some sort of thing that we can do to try to get to a good spot there. But again, and interim city manager Reynolds mentioned this, but I am very confident right now that we are going to be well within our available capacity on what they will use.
Yeah, we'll continue to talk about that, but
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards having someone independently verify that to make sure that we're not using, because I realize they're using a closed system, but some of these data systems have been built in the area are within the $9 to $10 million, or not 10, excuse me, 9 to 10 million gallons per day range, which is billions of gallons a year. You know, we need to make sure we have an obligation to our citizens to make sure that we are confident and that we have assurances from outside independently verified organizations that that's the case. That's where I'm leaning.
Okay.
And I feel very strongly about that, so just wanted to state that there. The other thing too is a question that folks had to me is how is this different than Rockwood? Because, you know, we've made mistakes before. I don't mean to bring those up. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, but we certainly want to go forward with this to make sure that we've got the utmost confidence with this. I know that, Joe, that you and your attorneys have been very, very kind to me and other council members to go through this contract line by line. I feel very confident that, you know, we've done tremendous work in making sure that we have the assurances in this contract that we have not made mistakes that we have before. Not that those mistakes were any staff's fault. But if you can, just for folks watching, because this is such a big decision for our city and so important, what are the assurances that we have here? And there are many, and I know you've enumerated them and you've worked for literally probably 18 months to make sure that we have that. But if you can identify that for our folks, that I think that would be extremely very, very, very helpful.
Well, I think from the get-go, this is completely different than Rockwood. Rockwood was built to provide energy to the city on the backs of the residents paying for it, right?
Right.
This is being constructed so that you have an already off-taker paying for it, bypassing all the residents and not impacting them. So I think this is a completely different deal. And, you know, the pricing of the PPA is really impartial to me if I'm not paying it, because the residents aren't going to pay that PPA price, right? That's what the data center, and that's why these were married up and actually brought forward and negotiated at the same time for a long period of time, was so that we all understand the costs and who's bearing it. And so I think that's really just from a philosophical standpoint, it's very different than Rockwood. Rockwood's price is what the residents pay for that energy.
Right.
That's what,
And if I understand correctly, it was a guaranteed price throughout the contract.
yes.
And really almost like the examples you used before with other data centers in other cities, they had the guaranteed price and they found out later, oops, maybe that wasn't the way to do that. You know,
Agreed, yes.
You've done this with, you know, you pay whatever the market rate is. So if this data center, and obviously the data center folks push back on that. And
Yes, they
and
do.
rightfully so, they should. They're business people. If they can get a guarantee elsewhere and reduce their risk, they should. But, you know, you stayed firm to that and said, no, we're not going to take the risk on, particularly for 800 megawatts. When you compare that for what we use within our city, right now we're using, what, about 230 megawatts?
We're 250, 285 is our peak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about possibly
Almost
easily
tripling.
3 to 4 times the capacity that we have right now.
Tripling our capacity.
With the flipping of the switch, full load of this data center.
Yes.
So, you know, that's a big deal to make sure that we have the guarantee for our citizens that they're not going to pick up the price tag on this item when it goes full capacity.
I have entered every single conversation through the PPA and ESA side that started with, this is not going to impact the residents in any negative fashion. And we've written as many protections in there as we possibly can. Thought about everything, thought about storms, thought about bankruptcy, thought about, you know, so I think we're as protected as we possibly can be through this transaction.
And you've got the, you know, UET is a very big company. They've done this tons of times.
Yes.
And we're not bonding this, and we're not taking on the capacity to do that. I really have to hand it to you with regards to this. This is a really elegant solution for a problem that's faced our city for a long time. How do we produce power and get generation within the city without us having to have, to be foot the bill for it, ahead of time and go into tremendous debt to bond it? Because we don't have the capacity. We could not get the capacity to bond $2 billion worth of debt to produce that kind of capacity. You would need a third party in order to do that, and this is a very elegant solution to do that. And I want to applaud you and the staff and everyone for all the hard work you've done for that. Of course, we as council members are obligated to ask very, very difficult questions, and we'll continue to do that. I hope, hopefully respectfully and kindly, but it's our obligation to ask those questions because our citizens, depend upon us to do that.
Absolutely.
But I also want to applaud you for the amount of work that you've done and the kindness you've had for allowing us to even go through the contract, line by line, and looking at it to make sure those assurances are there that our citizens will not be on the hook down the road for this, because that's a huge concern for our citizens, is to make sure that doesn't occur. And anyway, I just want to say, thank you for all your work. You've looked at all of those things. I still have concerns, but we'll continue to talk about those, and I've mentioned those today, and we'll go from there. But with that, I've gone on too long, and I will turn the floor over to Councilmember Perkins.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fears, please.
Councilman Fears.
A couple questions and then a comment before, and then John will take over. But regarding timeline, can you just review that timeline again of kind of when you anticipate things to happen?
So I think in the presentation you saw that Nebius was talking about starting construction in early 2026. They want 100 megawatts. Really, they were talking somewhere, and it was a little bit very dependent upon how their construction schedule went, somewhere between October of 26 clear through to the spring of 2027. This was another point that I negotiated with them. I said, well, I can't go purchase capacity on the market for a maybe. You either need to commit and tell me you need that load and you're going to use it and pay for it, or not. And so they've committed that starting in October of 2026, they're going to start paying for 100 megawatts. And then in April of 2027, they're going to start paying for 200 megawatts. I have capacity contracts that will be coming to you guys to cover kind of the difference between that, because the first phase of the construction of the power plant will be completed in October timeframe of 2027. So you can see there's a little bit of a lapse, but I did not want to not be able to provide the load for them and get them on board and get them ramping up. So we'll have capacity contracts, and those are 100% plus covered by the energy service agreement prior to the PPA coming in enacted. The energy service agreement is actually for 21 years, where the PPA is for 20 years, and it's to cover that extra year that we're charging them for capacity prior to the plant coming online. Okay. And then the remainder of phase 2 is targeted by the end of 2029 for everything to come online, for their remainder load and for the big power plant remainder generation to come online.
Thank you. Appreciate that review. The other question really is, this is one element of what we have happening out at Eastgate in terms of the long-term plan for the Eastgate Center. And so can you just speak a little bit, to the idea that, this will help us with capacity relative to other projects out there?
So this will bolster probably the 69 and 161 kV transmission system out there. There's still a plan, and we're still moving forward with the construction of Substation S out in the Eastgate Center. It may have moved a few times, but it will continue to be built out there, which will help bolster the distribution system and help as North Point continues to grow that development out there as well. So yes, it'll help bolster up that. And the next presentation following this one, we'll talk about how we can meet any future capacity needs, because this project already has spoken up for all of the capacity of the generation project, right? So that's already kind of gone. So we need other solutions for other capacity to continue to grow our community. And that'll be the next presentation coming up, talking about that. But
Okay, good. We'll look forward to that one. So just a comment. As I've had chance to be on the American Public Power Association now for a while, and at the meetings that I've been to there, we've talked about data centers at every one of those. And then a couple of weeks ago, when I was at the National League of Cities conference, there was a lot of discussion about data centers and the impact on municipalities there. And so the thing that I want to say about that is that as I listened to those discussions at both places, and as I've reviewed the documents and the plans that you have put together, especially when I was at National League of Cities, they had a big session on data centers, and they went through and talked about all the horror stories that had occurred in some places around the country. And as they were going down that list, I said, well, we've negotiated that one. That one won't impact us. This one won't impact us. And every one of them would not impact us in the negotiation you guys have done. So I can't say good enough stuff about what you and those that have been busy negotiating these projects. They really have, there's absolutely, I know we still have we have some hurdles to cross. We have some information to gather relative to water usage and things of that nature. But as that comes along, I think you guys have done a really great job on these negotiations. And so I just can't thank you enough for that.
thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Perkins?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say and thank staff for your diligence with this work. I know you spent a lot of time and energy and hours going through and working on this project, and I've learned more legal terms than I should probably go to law school now, perhaps, but here I am. So big thank you. I want to say a big thank you to our friends with North Point for bringing this development to the city of Independence. So I just want to put just a real quick 30-year perspective into why we're landing here, because I'm sure that we'll get conversations going and calls and emails about what's happening in the valley. So when I was on the council in 1996 through 2004, one of the big pushes we did was to develop the Little Blue Parkway to open up that valley. That has never been anything that's hidden. That has never been anything that was stuck under a rock somewhere. Now, fast forward 30 years, we're finally getting to the point where things are being moved and developed. So to have that fully understood, that valley may have gone through different evolutions of thoughts through the years, but now we have landed onto what is now being developed. So for anybody who thinks this is brand new, we can definitely go have coffee and we can talk about all the challenges over the last 30 years. The Independence School District, Fort Osage School District, and I believe the Blue Springs School District has been in conversations with the city and with the Chamber of Commerce and the economic partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. So there's been plenty of conversations with our community partners with this to get their understanding of what is taking place, because this has a massive impact, as was displayed here, not only to the city of Independence and our residents, but also to our families and to the school districts that represent and service our students. So, and the community college as well. So please understand these conversations are just beginning. The foundation has been laid, and I'm excited about moving forward. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have the further questions before we wrap this segment up? Very good. No, excellent presentation. I appreciate all your work. I cannot say thank you enough to you and your staff for excellent work on getting us to this point. So thank you. Appreciate it. And this brings us to our next item, expansion of the Dogwood plant.
So we'll bring Joe back up to discuss Dogwood. It's a power generation facility that the city's been an owner of for several years now. And discussions have gone back and forth about expansion over the years. And it looks like we're moving finally in that direction.
Yes, and I probably say this no less than 3 times through this presentation. This is a separate conversation from what we just had as far as the data center and the power project with that. This is completely separate from that. The owners of Dogwood have been talking about this for quite some time, and so I'll kind of go through a quick history and what we've been talking about and where we're currently at. It's going to be very high level, not going to go into details just because we don't have them yet. We're just at the beginning, but I wanted you guys to know that we're talking about this because they're going to go out and start doing studies and talking to water departments and things that are very public. So you might hear it coming back around of, hey, what's going on with Dogwood? Isn't that part of our set up our portfolio of generation? And the answer is yes. So, all right, come on. There we go. All right, so Dogwood is a combined cycle natural gas generation plant built clear back in 2002 down in Pleasant Hill, 2 by 2 by 1. And what that means, so when we say combined cycle, there's 2 combustion turbines that are basically kind of like jet engines. The exhaust of those go up to a heat recovery steam generator unit. So the heat off of the back end of those gas turbines heat up water and make steam. And then that steam goes and turns into one steam turbine that produces power. So you really have 3 sources of power. They're very efficient plants because you're recovering all that heat off of the exhaust of the combustion turbine. And it's been a very good ownership for Independence Power and Light to be a part of that plant. It's been operated very well for a long time. About 675 megawatts is what that plant is capable of producing. In 2012, IPL entered into agreement and purchased 12.3% of Dogwood Energy Center. I have no clue why they did the 0.3%, but whatever, which gave us about 80.75 megawatts in our capacity network for that. Dogwood is majority owned by municipal utility organizations like IPL, and I say majority. There's Missouri Public Utility Alliance, Kansas Municipal Energy Administration, KPP, some other ones, but here recently Evergy has purchased a portion of Dogwood, so we do have one investor-owned utility that's now a partner in the ownership of that. The assets are operated and maintained under other agreements, so we have a company called NACE that actually operates that plant for us, and Dogwood Power Management really helps keep all the financials together and look at different things for the plant. The owners have been talking for a long time. When that plant was built back in 2002, the owner was a company called Calpine. They built that facility, and then sometime afterwards, they went into bankruptcy and sold their assets, and a company called Kelson bought that asset and then created the Dogwood Power Management team to kind of help navigate through that. When it was built actually with the thoughts of expanding it and building 2 of those combined cycle plants side by side. So as an owner, you're going, well, where's the best place to build a plant? Well, how about in a place that was already kind of built to have expansion be there? So the owners, all just like us standing in this room, have talked about capacity needs and what do we need for the future. We have aging assets, we have new power needs, we have a lot of things on the horizon. So does it make sense to look at Dogwood and as a group evaluate whether that's a good idea to expand that? When Kelson took over that plant, the market was pretty heavy and fat with a lot of capacity, so it just didn't make sense to expand it at that time. Well, with our current needs and again the way the market is, it does make sense to at least entertain it and look at it and doing a strong engineering evaluation to whether this makes financial sense for the owners. Earlier this year, the owners agreed to initiate a feasibility study with an engineering firm to look at, okay, well, how much fuel can you get at the site? What's the water needs, and what could we get there? Are we constrained by land? And then the electrical connections, what could that take? And so we kicked off an engineering feasibility study, and they've been going through those items and really honing down. We are trying to drive to a final what is the actual cost of this project and what would be each of the owners' responsibility and what would each of the owners get out of it. We've really kind of narrowed down the study. It started pretty broad with several combined cycle units, some large frame combustion turbines, some smaller ones like we're building, out at the Blue Valley Power Plant. And we landed on 2 simple cycle combustion turbines. We didn't want to build a project that was going to compete with the project that's already there. I don't want to build a new plant that makes the old one shut down. So we landed on simple cycles because that'll meet kind of some other needs of the market in the area. And really the rating is probably going to be in the 500 to 520. That's from initial studies of the gas flow that we could get to that plant and how much megawatts we could get out of there. So if it was 500 to 520, IPL's 12.3% is about 61.5 to 64 megawatts of capacity that we would get from that project. There's a lot of discussion of if an owner doesn't want their portion or all of their portion, that would probably be available up to the other owners to be able to either purchase that or enter into an agreement. So there is likelihood that we would be able to get more than the 61 to 64 out of that project through other agreements. Timeline, so we're still continuing on engineering evaluations now. We expect some of those preliminary numbers to be coming back sometime in 2027. We're going to try to get into the next Southwest Power Pool generator interconnect study, which will tell us what kind of transmission upgrades would be required for that. That is kicking off in early, it opens up for late 2026 and ends in early 2027 is the window for that next queue. So we've got some time to really evaluate it, make sure it makes sense, and then get into that queue because that's going to take some real dollars too. It costs money to go into those studies and decide if we want to spend those dollars and move forward with it or not. Ordering of equipment then at that point in time, if we feel we're going to move forward, would probably come in late 2027. And right now the timeline would put that project online in 2032. So these projects take a lot of time. They take a lot of planning. They take a lot of capital investment. But we just felt that it was a good time to get it in front of the council and let you kind of know what we're going through and the things we're discussing so that you're not caught off guard if we start talking about it next year. I just thought it was a good time for an update. With that, I'm ready for any questions.
Any questions? Please proceed.
I know a sizable portion of our energy capacity that we have promised to SPP is coal-fired power plants. So
Yes.
Iatan and Nebraska City, and those are long-term contracts that we're part of. Are we anticipating any of those shutting down sooner than the life of the plant? Are we trying to plan for that, or this is just extra capacity because we know we need it?
So I would say in the current environment, regulatory, probably not.
Okay.
But those can change upon any election cycle. This project I'm looking at for things like we have Oneida capacity that we purely just pay for paper capacity. It would be nice to get some returns on energy and not just pay for that as well. Also, we can really start making some strategic plans on retiring our old combustion turbines and replacing them with something new, and help us kind of go through that cycle and really kick into a true IRP, which I know you guys have heard me talk about, an integrated resource plan and talk about our long-term assets, but I can't really do anything in the environment we're in right now until I have excess capacity to be able to take anything offline. So we do have some wind contracts that are coming due, and we need to evaluate those of what do we go back out to the market with. I'll stand here and tell you today, I fully anticipate us replacing the wind contracts, but with better pricing and some better things that we could do. But I believe in a diverse portfolio. Gas is good. Coal is retiring and won't be replaced, but it's good right now. Wind is good. Batteries we need to start looking at real heavily. So I think a good diverse portfolio of all of those helps complement you and bring energy in an effective way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Other questions? Quick question here is, obviously, if this comes to fruition, we've got a commitment. We're part of the owners. what would it look like for us for investment on this?
I can't say right now. That's what the engineering study is going to tell us, the dollar amount. I don't want to speculate, because the pricing of turbines and the pricing of equipment is changing on an almost weekly basis, and by the time we get to purchasing it, I hate to avoid the topic, but I don't think throwing numbers out today is really going to help us, just because I don't have good numbers.
So you'll know sometime in late
2027. Yeah. Before we make a decision to move forward with the generator interconnect and spend dollars on those studies, we'll have dollars for the project and understand a little more honed in cost. And that's really why we're going through the engineering studies, is to figure out via the owners if this makes financial sense for us.
Okay. So are we obligated to, if the owners as a group decide to do this, are we obligated to make a purchase, or do we have an opt-out option?
We have an opt-out option.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not obligated. If the majority of the owners want to move forward, we're not obligated for any expansion costs. They would have to decide how they would split that.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? Okay. Madam City Manager, anything else?
Nothing else this evening, thank you.
And anything else we need on the agenda? With that being said, let's call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.